And I hereby certify that this meeting has been published in the newspapers in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act and posted as required by law.
Thank you very much. This evening we have quite a busy workshop. I'd like to start with a presentation by Mark Bilt at Long Branch with Dean Marchetto.
Can I turn this on?
Absolutely, sir.
Okay, I'm going to begin. My name is Dean Marchetto. I'm the architect for Mark Bilt, working on this project. I'm happy to be back here. This is not the first time I've been here in Long Branch. This is the place of some of my most proudest work. For those who don't know my work, this is our first job here in Long Branch. We did Pier Village Phase 1, and you can see in this photograph this restaurant as well. So you all know that this is the beginning of the Pier Village project.
Don't need it for me. I don't. Anybody else? Okay.
And go down to May 8th, which is the last day. Either the 9th or 10th. Thursday.
This year,
15th is the regular Tuesday. We're doing 15th. Christmas 25th. Go the 23rd.
What was the meeting date in November?
15th.
15. The 27th.
And then December 25th meeting, run it on the 27th. Is that all right?
That's good.
27th, so Christmas Day is on Tuesday, we're going to do it on Thursday, the 27th. Does that work?
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
That's it.
Kathy, will you republish it, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So again, the only changes, as I see here, correct me if I'm wrong, January 1st is not going to be a scheduled meeting.
Okay.
May 8th is going to be changed to Thursday, May 10th.
Right.
November 13th is going to be changed to November 15th, the Thursday, that's because of the League of Municipalities. And Christmas Day, which falls on Tuesday, is going to be changed to the 27th, which is on a
That's
Thursday.
fine. I got them all. I just like to have a clean piece of copy.
Anything else?
Oh, we are already moving. Just to point it out, we didn't talk about it, but April 20, we normally have the 22nd, but it's moved to the 24th. Is that Easter? Or what holiday is that? Early April.
Good Friday is the 30th of March.
Wait a minute, I apologize.
March
I'm in the
30th.
wrong month.
Yeah. Easter would be April 1st.
I'm in the wrong month, I apologize.
On October 23rd, I remember we're going to have it on that day. Somebody might be saying-
What's that?
I mean, it's first in years.
Well,
What?
October 23rd.
Might be a meeting that day.
No. Black week?
No. No, you don't.
Are we good?
Yes.
So Kat, that'll be on for next meeting? Is that
Yes.
what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mary Jane, you're okay with the dates?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so now we're going to have a presentation by Long Branch Partners, headed by Mr. Nick Manoia. Mr. Manoia?
Thank you. Good evening. Excuse me, just before you start, did you coordinate with Ralph Basil to participate by phone? For this?
For cell phone.
For the
Sure.
executive or for this meeting?
He wants to be in on the presentation.
Okay.
Thank you for reminding me.
Do you want me to use my phone?
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, members of the council, staff, and members of the public who are here this evening. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present our plan for the development of the Lower Broadway corridor. My name is Nick Minoy. I'm the managing director and a member of the Long Branch Partners.
Right now, it's Kate. I'm going to put you on speaker, okay?
Okay. And a member of Long Branch Partners LLC, which is the ownership of the property in question, which is approximately 9 acres on Lower Broadway. Members of our team are here this evening, including Jack Blachter to my left. Jack is suffering from a little bit of laryngitis that he got today. I don't know, maybe he can really talk, but he wanted me to play his role too. We'll see what happens later. Bryce Turner from BCT. I don't know if Bryce is here. Bryce is here. Thank you, Bryce. Bryce is our architect planner from Baltimore. Eric Ballou from Insight is here this evening, as is Chuck Tint and James Pansetti from my office, Long Branch Partners, and Jimmy Mazza, who I think probably everybody in this room knows. Jimmy's here tonight as well. I want to give you.
Mr. Minoy, what does Jimmy Mazza have to do with the group?
Jimmy is our local contact working on the project, was responsible for the oversight of all the demolition and cleanup of the property, and is involved on a going forward basis in the construction. So the project consists of 590 market rate rental units in 4 phases, 99,500 square feet of commercial space, and ultimately with the full build out, and we'll go through the phasing plan, 1,255 parking spaces in 2 parking decks, which are part of phase 3 and 4. And again, we'll go through, as time permits, what the phasing schedule allows, and you'll see how the program lays out. Along with the associated site improvements as detailed on the site plan, including the building of a boulevard down Broadway, which we'll show you momentarily. Phase 1 of the project, which we intend to have ready for preview by the planning board in March of 2018, will consist of the construction and installation of the Broadway Boulevard improvements, approximately 28,000 square feet of new retail and restaurant and food-related space, and 166 residential units. Phase 2 of the project, and Phase 1 will be on the northeast corner of Broadway and 2nd Avenue. Phase 2 across the street on the south part of Broadway shall consist of 20,100 square feet of retail and associated restaurant space and 173 residential units. Both of those phases are presumed to be surface parked, and you'll see as we go through the rotation as time allows how the mechanics of the parking will play out. Phase 3 of the project will consist of 28,500 square feet of retail and restaurant associated space, 108 residential units, and this is where the first parking deck, which is a multi-level parking deck containing 534 parking spaces and 30 affordable units, will be built as part of Phase 3 in a location to be determined at a later date. Phase 4 of the project will consist of 22,100 square feet of additional retail and restaurant space, 143 residential units, and a multi-level parking deck containing another 590 parking spaces, known as the Phase 4 parking garage. And I'd like to give you, do we have to work from the microphone, or can we get to the drawings?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay,
Sure.
thank you. Wasn't sure if everything needed to be recorded.
It will be.
Okay, all right. Everybody's familiar with the location, but I just want to highlight it for everybody in case there's a lack of familiarity. So approximately 9 acres, Broadway through the middle of the property, Union Avenue to the north, Belmont to the south, 2nd Avenue to the east, and Liberty and Memorial to the west. As you all know, over the course of the last year or so, we've demolished, I believe it's 53 buildings. Jimmy Mazza, absolutely instrumental in helping and assisting with that demolition and cleanup. 53 buildings, several 100,000 square feet, millions of dollars worth of demolition complete and behind us now. ready for site development and the building of the Broadway road improvements. So, kind of working from the beginning, this is the proposed site plan. Again, here's Broadway, Memorial, Second, Union, and Belmont. Phase 1 of this project, and I don't know if everybody can see this, but this is phase 1, which is the northeast quadrant, right here. This is the phase line in red, which includes the building of the Broadway improvements, the opening of the boulevard, the construction of the median down Broadway. This is two-way traffic. Phase 1 is this building, which again has 28,000 square feet of commercial and restaurant retail related space and 166 multifamily units. So that includes this area here with the building of Broadway. Once this phase is complete, we jump to the south part of Broadway, which is this area right here, which then adds another 20,100 square feet of restaurant and retail space and another 173 units. We then jump to phase 3, which includes the parking deck, the first of 2 parking decks, and it's another 28,500 square feet of restaurant retail space and 108 residential units. Then we jump to the southwest corner, phase 4, around the 379-foot antenna, which we'd love to move but can't. And that includes 28,500 square feet, 143 residential units, and a multi-level parking deck. What happens is there's a plan that's executed throughout this program where when we build phase 1, 3/4 of the property is vacant, so that's all surface parked on properties that we own as we phase this program. When we build phase 2, there's still plenty of parking between the phase 3 and phase 4, plus we own a lot over here, and there are some city lots in the general vicinity that on a temporary basis we'll use for parking until the parking decks get constructed. So then we come back in, we build the parking deck, reabsorb the parking, which will be then in phase 3. Same thing happens in phase 4 when the parking deck there gets constructed. From our perspective, we're probably 3 to 4 months out from having plans that could be submitted to the planning board for approval, which we expect to do again in March. It would be the timing that we proposed. Everything from a site development perspective is ready, from demolition and environmental work. There are environmental issues at the property. There's some groundwater contamination. And we selected a lot of the rotation of what drove the phasing was where the property was site development ready based on environmental and demolition. So that part is behind us now. This is a view if you were standing at 2nd Avenue looking west down Broadway. So the beer garden that's under construction, hopefully will finish in our lifetime, is approximately here. So if you were on the roof of the beer garden, you'd be looking west down Broadway. These buildings are 1 story of retail and 4 stories of residential. And that theme permeates the project throughout. All of the buildings, the entire development is 1 story retail, 4 stories of residential above retail in each phase. And again, this will be phase 1 right here. Northeast corner of Broadway and 2nd Avenue. Again, the architecture, very symbiotic with each other, each phase, so that ultimately it looks like the entire program was constructed at the same time. This is a view if you were looking at the old Cafe Lapa space. That would be this location right here. If you were on the corner of Memorial looking east, this is the north-west corner of Broadway. So now you're looking down Broadway from Memorial. This would be the view that you'll have as you approach Broadway. And the boulevard would start right about in here where it opens up into a 2-way road. Again, the theme here is very walkable, wide sidewalks, very pedestrian friendly. This is all about, we believe, food, beverage, retail, nightlife, off the beach, a lot of activity, Very, very pedestrian friendly. Lots of outdoor space, decks for the residents here. These are all elevator buildings, 4-story stick construction, over retail.
Oh, that makes it 5 stories?
They are 5 stories, which are 1 story of the retail, 4 stories above that, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure it was clear.
Yep, no, that's a good question. It's 5 stories, including the retail. And again, it's all within code and stick-built type construction. This is a plan that, we won't spend a lot of time on this, but this was an analysis that Eric from Insight has worked on, which are, we've been down to DEP. Kevin Hayes was kind enough with Carl Turner to join us recently at a meeting with CAFRA. We need our CAFRA approvals. This is a plan that's being developed for coverage so that we can meet the ultimate coverage ratio of no more than 80%, depending on how we look at pre-existing conditions. But a plan was developed that we're working with Michael Gross, our attorney, working with CAFRA, working with the city and Eric's efforts to resolve this plan in order to meet the CAFRA requirements. I think that the key takeaway for us is that we're basically ready to go. It's a matter of finalizing our redevelopment agreement, putting the financial agreement in place, which will then trigger the architects and the planners to go to work, developing phase 1 architecture, which again is that northeast corner. This would be your phase 1, and that plan will be the construction of this building here, about 166 apartments and associated retail space, very open courtyard, outdoor seating, restaurants, food associated with the building of Broadway, and some retail down the Broadway Boulevard in preparation then to jump to the south end so that each of these would flank one another, phase 1 and phase 2.
How many square feet of retail in phase 1?
Phase 1 retail is 28,000 plus 166 apartments. And then as you jump to phase 2, it's about 20,000. So between the 2 phases with the building of the boulevard, you're almost 50,000 square feet of commercial space, and you'd be at about 350 residential units, something like that.
Other than the parking, when you divvy it up into 4 phases, it's about even in terms of each block has about the same amount.
It's about the same. It's
residential
20 to
retail.
28,000.
Right.
It's 120 to 160
Or
apartments.
phases 3 and 4 is where you come in with the parking.
With the parking. That's when the first parking deck gets built in phase 3 and the second one in phase 4. Again, the antenna remains. That's what this triangle is here. So we've tried to develop some open space around it. This property is not included. This is the Rivera property on the corner of Memorial and Broadway. Is not our property. It's not part of the redevelopment, but we just show it in here that it's not just for identification purposes. But basically residential all the way around. The buildings will have the same look all the way around, including Belmont and Union. So as you're looking at the architecture that you see here, the rear of the buildings are very similar in nature. It's not going to be like there's a front, there's a back that looks completely different.
Nick, while you are completing Broadway, what will you be doing for the landscaping around the rest of the properties?
It's a very good question. So because it is a 9-acre site approximately, we're going to have to dress it up because we're going to be working in an area where it's a little desolate looking,
Yes,
let's face
yes,
it.
is.
So
Looks like a work.
we think that, and again, we have a lease with the city for parking for the summertime, so there is a off-the-beach parking that the city will take advantage of in a positive way for the vacant space that we don't need while we're under construction.
So what will you do to improve that level?
So I think there has to be some interim landscaping plan developed that's going to be part of that.
Phase 1?
With phase 1. That would be part of the program for phase 1. If we could show some interim fencing, benches, some associated type pedestrian-friendly environment. We
We'll
hope
talk about putting a post around fence in along. the Broadway corner, and get rid of the snow fence. All complement with some landscaping.
And we think we'd like to program some events during this time also, whether it's, food truck events or anything that to be able to use the space to bring people back to the lower Broadway area while we're developing this, to bring, create some activity and some positive environment.
Nick, at this point, I think we all recognize that the plans that have been developed to date are not sufficient for the redevelopment agency, the council, to conceptually approve those plans so it gets sent to the planning board. The plan, as I understand it, is that within 90 days of the execution of the developer's agreement, you will bring those plans back to the council. The council will then look at them. If the council has the appropriate approvals from the planning director, Carl Turner, it will then get moved to the planning board. At that point in time, the planning board will act, not act, do whatever it needs to do. Assuming approvals, it will then get CAFRA approval and other governmental agencies, county or whatever, and then you would be able to begin construction at that point. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is the sequence, and again, it's a monumental effort for Bryce and his team to develop the construction drawings and the plans that Eric needs to do for engineering. You can imagine the magnitude of engineering that has to happen for Broadway, a lot of the utility work that has to be designed and implemented there, so those plans will be developed over the next 90 days.
And the other issue that we have is that, and I don't mean it in a negative sense, but we have to get to a developer's agreement. There's going to be a RAB that the city would be issuing for $5 million for the first phase for the streetscape improvements to contribute to the project. That is going to come about only after there is the site plan approval, and you have, from your perspective as a developer, the construction lending lined up with the appropriate construction guarantees that your lender will approve.
That's correct. We see this as a harmonious project between Phase 1 and the boulevard improvements, which is that RAB associated with the $5 million improvements are for the reconstruction of Broadway. They'll happen simultaneously with the construction of Phase 1 as we build that building and have certain associated personal guarantees and completion guarantees with our lender, which will then help to secure all of this work being done here along Broadway.
And the way the phasing is going to work, just so everybody is clear, when you build Phase 1, you construct it, and then we have triggers that once 75 or 80% of the Phase 1 units are rented, you would then begin the construction project for Phase 2.
That's correct. We see this as we work to stabilize Phase 1. And again, there's a sequence here. I happen to be a board member at a sizable bank in New Jersey. The way these things work is we'll have a construction loan on this phase. And as this part of the property becomes stabilized, 75–80% of the space is occupied and rented, then we'll trigger the development of the construction drawings for Phase 2. We have time periods in our agreement that we'll have to commence construction of Phase 2. So as we see that the progress is positive in renting up the retail and the residential units, that will trigger the development of the next phase of drawings to meet the timeframes that we agree with the city.
And then Phases 3 and 4 will have the parking garages, which will also be subsidized at that time by RABs, but will be negotiated in the future once you get to those phases.
That is correct. And I think another key component is there's been some discussion about local labor and so on and so forth. We're a big proponent of it, starting with Jimmy Mazza, by the way. And the demolition contractor that did, 2 demo contractors did this work. They were both local demolition contractors. Although we're a multi-state operation, we're currently building in 4 different states, including New Jersey, obviously. We very much like to bring in local labor because local labor knows the drill, they know the people, they know the process, they work here, they live here. This is your community. We're a big, big advocate of it. So to the extent that we're able to, I can think of a project. I was up at New York State where we're building just yesterday. Our plumbers, our electricians, our framers, they're all local people. Because why should I drag people from somewhere else to have a long commute to get here if I can find labor that's local that can work on these projects? And again, it requires a special skill to be able to develop these properties, so we have to make sure that they're skilled, and if they're not, we have to work to try to help them to get there. And that's what we do on a local level.
Along that vein, there's also an affordable housing component that will be key to Phase 3, where there will be a 30-unit development at an off-site tract to be selected between the city and the developer as this project moves forward.
And we have experience at that as well. We've built affordable housing in New Jersey under the prior COA guidelines. We own affordable housing units in New Jersey that are restricted units in perpetuity, some with a 20 and a 30-year lifetime. So that's not new to us either. We have it, we have them, we rent them, we qualify the people. We're very familiar with how that works, and we'll identify a location somewhere off-site that will develop those required units.
Now, the only other issue is that we recognize, and the public should know, that the city holds mortgages on several parcels in this tract of 9 acres, and the city also owns several parcels. There's been an agreement worked out where there will be payments to the city for the properties the city owns. One payment would be due in December of this year. Right now, it's December 15th, based on a execution of the agreement today. If that is put off, it is my understanding that there's been an agreement that that funds would be paid by December 21st, if in fact we have to work towards a execution on potentially the 11th of December. Is that correct?
That is correct. We have no problem with the agreed upon amounts that the city has mortgages and properties that are owned. We're in absolute agreement on that and are prepared to fund in accordance with the agreement as may be extended.
Nick, when you go in front of the planning board, are you going to go phase by phase, do phase 1 first, and then come back when you're ready to do 2, or are you going to do the whole project as one?
It's probably going to be an overall concept approval for everything with a final for phase 1. It's probably the best way to do it.
Okay.
So for later, it would be preliminary approval.
Preliminary for the entire
4
project.
phases, and then final approval for 1. And then as you move forward to 2, 3, and 4, it would follow
each phase as we go.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Mr. Minoy, just to pick up on Mr. Allen's point, the development agreement, in other words, that's on for tentative tonight. So the development agreement states that you shall pay the city $1.2 million on or before December 15th for the release of some mortgage liens that the city holds. So you'll stick to that date of commitment if the agreement is approved tonight, or as Mr. Aaron said, at the next meeting on December 11th, we'll stick to the payment by December 21st.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Murray, one last question that I have, well, 2 questions. Do you have a partner involved in this, or do you plan to get one, or?
I do have a partner. These properties are owned by myself and my partner, John Stein.
And it's just Long Branch partners?
Just Long Branch partners. It's just the 2 of us.
Okay.
There are no other partners.
Okay. So part of the process in granting a developer's agreement is that the developer has the financial capacity to build the project. So can you tell us what assurances you can give this governing body that you have that capability to build this?
Sure. I mean, in general, we've been doing this for, we didn't talk about the backgrounds, but I have almost a 40-year track record for building multifamily in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut. We currently, as a firm, have somewhere approaching 1,000 units under construction currently, several $100 million of construction loans to our name and under our guarantees, managing thousands of apartments, and have a full staff, more than capable. We manage our own construction. I had noted earlier I am a board member at a $5 billion bank in New Jersey. We are more than capable, qualified, and financially suited to handle the construction here. It's well within the realm of the size projects we do on a daily basis.
What's the timetable if things go according to plan that you'd like to see?
We would love to see this project come out of the ground in late spring, and it's a very optimistic time period. That we've got a lot of work to do from the point where the council gives us the green light and the developers are given the sign. Bryce and his team have an awful lot of work to do to develop construction drawings, Eric with the engineering, but we do plan on being before the board in March. And if it's a March, April kind of an approval, we want this project out of the ground in late spring, early summer. Vacant land doesn't pay a lot of rent.
Any other questions?
Just so the public knows, to get the construction financing that is necessary for this project, is it not true that you need full planning board approval before banks will lend money based on your experience in the industry?
We need to be designated as the redeveloper, number one. And number two, we need full site plan, we need full engineering, construction drawings, and site plan approval in order to obtain a construction commitment for the financing that's required for a project of this magnitude.
Dr. Selly, do you have any questions?
No, I'm all right listening.
Anyone else?
No, very good.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. English.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're not going to say a few words?
He's been screaming at me all day.
Wait till you see the bill. You.
Thank you.
Okay, so the last item on the public agenda here, public workshop, is a review of the regular meeting agenda.
You're welcome.
Anyone have any questions?
No.
Okay, if not, I need a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? I need a motion to go into executive session for the following items. Under personnel matters, we'll have a discussion of the police department with acting chief Roebuck. And I just want to make note that we are adding under contract negotiations Long Branch Partners. Can I have a motion, please?
Second.
Roll call.
Before noon.
Mrs. Bastelli?
Yes.
Between 11 and 12,
Mrs.
actually.
Billy?
Yes.
Mr. Sirianni?
Yes.
Dr. Selly?
Yes.
Mr. Pallone?
Yes.